We were.
Oh, Connor, you stole my heart, man.
What's happening?
That's so nice.
We welcome everybody. It's been a few weeks.
What's up, Sam?
Haven't seen y'all for a while. We haven't had Tequila Tuesday due to the holidays and my crazy schedule being in Costa Rica and all that. So excited to get back into it. We have my friend Samantha McKenna here. She's going to talk to us about how to run the perfect discovery call. And hopefully we're going to talk some trash and badmouth some of the bad questions that people ask. We got into that a little bit on LinkedIn today. And Sam and I were just having a fun little chat for 5 or 10 minutes. And so we're both like slightly irritated and fired up and potentially very passionate right now. So we're ready to rock. I have my tequila. Sam has her wine. We're ready to roll. If you don't know Sam, maybe I'll have her give a little introduction. And I'll stay out of the way. I'll operate the chat. I'll jot your names down if you have questions for Samantha, and we'll go from there. All right.
Thanks, man. So nice to be here, you guys. Jill, loving your glasses. Jessica, cheers to you and your full glass of red wine there. Zoe, what's up? Thanks for saying hi. Hi, you guys. So good to meet you all. So we're going to talk about discovery calls today, but for you guys who don't know me, a little bit of background. I've been in enterprise sales for my entire career. So about 15 years or so now. I know I look much younger. You don't need to say it. But I got thrown in the deep end right out of the gate. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Probably like many of you, when you got into sales, you also had no idea what you were doing. And so I winged it and tried to figure it out and learn as much as I possibly could. This was even before the days of LinkedIn influencers. So I had none of the shit to rely on whatsoever. I had to read like the little red book of prospecting or whatever the hell that's still on my shelf and that kind of stuff. But I think the thing is about sales is, to me, it's not rocket science. Like, it is really easy stuff. It's about foundational practices to me. It's about good manners, right? Like, if we bring in some etiquette into our sales game, like, we can knock it out of the park. But background wise, otherwise, I spent some time at a bunch of companies out in Silicon Valley, on 24 for some time, which is a webinar marketing platform, if any of you guys know it. And then before starting Sam Sales, I was at LinkedIn for about 2 years, running net new enterprise sales for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So if you guys have any questions about that and you want to nerd out on it, I have got you covered. And then when I left LinkedIn, it was nice enough to get to stay on as a brand ambassador. So I'm about one of 20 people that get that distinction. I get to be involved in product development, marketing videos, all kind of stuff. You guys are going to see my face more than you care to in a little while on some of their content. So my condolences to you and apologies in advance. And then Sam Sales has been around for just over 2 years as a business. The hashtag's been around for about 5, 6, 7 years. I've been posting pretty actively on LinkedIn for a while. But the business is awesome. We grew seemingly overnight. We signed our 106th client today. We've been in business 27, 28 months. Thanks. Yeah, it's surreal. I will say too, like, you know, we don't do this in a vacuum. Our business has been built off the backs of people being incredibly generous to us and sending business our way and engaging with us on LinkedIn. And I know many of you know, the likes of Amy Volus and Charlie Riley, who are on this call, right? Who are nice enough to just think of us and make referrals. So really, really important that we have a community and you build a brand and you build people around you who are equally awesome. Questions before we dive in? Disco call, anything you guys wanna ask about background wise or anything there? Cool. Well, let's dive into it. I think disco calls to me is something I'm super, super passionate about. I think it's the thing that we get wrong more often than not, probably even more so than our really bad outbound emails. I know you guys have seen a lot of chatter about that constantly, especially from me. But discovery calls to me, we do them all day, every day, right? Sometimes we do 2 or 3 of them in a day. They're the most important part of our sales cycle. They're our first date. They're what we do to earn the second date, right? And to me, I think a lot of it comes down to same stuff that we talk about from a dating perspective, right? Like, if we think about how we set up our disco calls and the things that we do, it's basically the same thing that we do on a first date. Don't talk about yourself too much. ask some questions, try to see if you can like move things along to the next day, that kind of jazz. But let's talk about the way to set it up correctly. So to me, one, we're getting on Zooms these days, right? So we've been doing this for a long time, but think about this, like when you get on your Zoom, first and foremost, just look like you're happy to be there. I see a ton of reps that are gonna get on, they're like, hello, Scott. Thank you for making time for us. We're excited to tell you about SAM sales. And Scott's like, wow, I'm enthused, I'm jazzed, I can't wait to go. So you're happy, like you're having a discovery call. Somebody's actually given you the time of day to talk about your product or whatever it is that you're doing. Show up, be excited, right? Like I get on a Zoom early. I look for the little check mark to come on that their audio is connected and I engage right away. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Welcome, it's Sam, blah, blah, blah. Even if you're not the enthusiastic, over gesturing bird that I am, right? Just at least show some happiness, throw a smile in your face, right? Say hello, engage out of the gate. One other thing, and this just happened today, when you show up to a discovery call, or let's say it's the second or the third call, and we have, let's say Scott and I have a great first call, and he's like, I'm going to include 2 or 3 other people on my team that I think really should hear your demo or hear your pitch. We got on the call today. I was on, the AE was on, the 2 people on Scott's team joined, and the rep said, hey guys, we're just waiting for your boss to join. Ooh. And then just, and then just sat there. And I'm like, you need to engage. And they were like, what am I going to say? And starts to panic. And I'm like, oh my God. So every time somebody joins, it's an opportunity to build a relationship with them, right? So start to talk, even if they're unexpected. Hey, how's it going? Didn't realize you were going to join today. Who are you? Tell me about you. Don't ask that way, right? But start to engage with them. Make sure you've done your homework. If you know who's going to be coming up on the call, this is our opportunity to show me you know me, right? You guys have heard the phrase, I know you have. If you haven't, it's right back here on the frame. But given this is an opportunity for you guys to build rapport. If somebody joins and you say, hey, Scott, how's the weather in Texas? Scott's going to be like, it's sunny. Thanks for asking. And you're going to be like, cool. And then you're not going to know where to go. Bring some executive presence to the table, right? Like this is our opportunity to talk about something else about the weather. So like what's going on in their business? What's going on in the press? What's going on with them? What have you figured out about them? What do we know? Like what can we use to just build a normal human fucking relationship with them, right? That sets us apart. I say that because most people don't do that. They still don't. They just don't know what to do. They don't know what's appropriate, right? Or they'll show up and be like, hello, thank you for making time. I'm excited to talk to you about my product. And then they'll talk to you for 28 minutes instead of asking questions. So first and foremost, engage immediately, be happy, do some show me, you know me. The thing that I would say there is also know the cue of when to move it on to the professional part of the relationship. So professional part of the call rather. A lot of people will like make a final joke and then there's like 2 or 3 seconds of silence and the prospect's like, so what should we be doing here today? Where would you like to begin? And then the AE is like, oh God, and they're all nervous. So just know when you're building rapport, maybe you make one final comment, then move on to the first question, right? And how we want to kick off our call. Kicking off our call, Jimmy, there are so many wrong ways to do this. And, probably what I hear the most often in terms of the wrong way to do it is, Scott, tell me a little bit about why you showed up for this call today, or tell me a little bit about what interested you in this call, taking this call today. And if Scott wants to be a dick, he can be a dick and he could be like, I don't know, your BDR booked it and here I am. And then I'm like, oh God, and I get nervous and then I talk about myself for 28 minutes, right? Again, so here we are. That question really doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for the buyer. It doesn't help us. We don't want to talk about ourselves. We don't want to make assumptions about why they're here. One of the things that I talk about a lot is we also don't want to ask super specific questions. So if I get on and I'm like, okay, well, let's get started. Scott, tell me about, your CRM. What CRM do you use? And then he'll be like, we use Salesforce. And then be like, well, okay. And then I'll move on to the next 16 questions I have on my list. Instead, perfect way, my humble opinion, to start a discovery call is to say, okay, so thanks again for making time. Listen, I could tell you a million things about SAM sales, and we totally will, but I'd love to hear from you first. Tell me about your team, challenges you're having, what's the overall landscape like that over there, if that's okay. And what you've got is you've kind of got that broken down into 3 distinct sections, right? So number 1, I'm going to tell you about me, but first, number 2, I'd love to hear about you first. Tell me about your team, challenges, tell me about the softwares you use, tell me what's going on over there, in whatever land, if that's okay. So those 3 sections, right? Make sure we're saying we're going to tell you about us. We want to hear about you first. And then we're asking for that permission at the end. that permission, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to be like, yeah, for sure. And then they're going to data dump for like 9 minutes, which is glorious, right? When they give you all of that information, why they showed up, you know, that's what we're basically asking. Why'd you show up here today? But in a much more tactful and professional way. The thing that I would call attention to is kind of that middle part as well. Tell me about you first. Tell me about your team, challenges, what's going on over there. When I say probably to, I don't know, 50, 60% of the people, tell me about you first, they kind of get deer in headlights eyes. They're like, shit, what about me? Like, what does she want to know? So what I'm really doing there is I'm pulling in some EQ and I'm just kind of like smacking my lips around, just like throwing some words out there just so I can fill the silence while they think, right? So I'm just building in that EQ, giving them a little bit of room to think, and then saying, if that's okay. Now, when they do start to talk, the best advice I can give you is just to shh and let them talk. That stream of consciousness that they're going to run through is, again, the gold part, right? That's where we really want to hear everything that they have to say. A lot of AEs, the first time they hear something, you know, a problem they can solve or something they can do, they're like, oh my God, yes, let me tell you about this. And then we've lost everything else that's going to come after that. So just shh, which I realize is rich coming from me since I never stop talking, but I promise on discovery calls, it's the one time I do. And just let them go. Once they're done talking, especially if they really rambled for a while, they're probably going to laugh and they're going to be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I've talked forever, right? Like, we want to reassure them and be like, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Like, such valuable information. And what we can do with that is basically they've given us exactly how to drive the rest of the call. So at the end of that, I say, I have about 1 million questions for you. Can I go back to the very first point that you mentioned and start there? While that stream of consciousness is going, I'm making a list, right? Whether you're typing, you know, let them know and just say, I'm going to take notes if you hear me typing, or if you're writing with a pen, I always like to be like, let me ask you this. And then I write down, because again, we're in Zoom. They have no idea what the hell's going on our side of the table. I could be looking at Instagram while they talk the whole time. They have no idea. Maybe I am sometimes. What? Just kidding. But just make sure to show your pen, right? That you're actually writing something down, call it a day. But I like to do it Roman numeral style. So 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever their issues are, right? Key challenges I hear, something key about the incumbent, a frustration they have, something there, right? I'm writing all those things down. Now, when I go back to point 1, what I basically do is follow a framework that looks like this. So can I just ask you, I've got 1 million questions. Can I go back to point 1? Tell me a little bit about what you said here. Tell me a little bit more about this. So I'm asking a question about their challenge or something that was important to them or whatever. They're going to give me the answer. And then I'm going to do the number one thing that B2B buyers want us to do. I'm going to actively listen. I'm going to show that I'm engaged. I'm going to show that I heard whatever it is that they said, and I'm going to ask them another question based on the answer they gave me. So you can practice this at home, you know, with your parents, your spouse, your partner, your kids, whomever, and just say, hey, how was your day? And whoever that person is will be like, it was busy. And instead of you being like, what do you want for dinner? And asking your firing range of questions, you can be like, what made it so busy? Active listening question, magical gold stuff. So I like to say, tell me about this challenge. They give me an answer. And then I follow up with another question, active listening. I get that response. And then basically what I do from there, and it's not perfect like this every single time, right? But this will give you a flow, is I'll say, you know what, this makes me think exactly of what we were just working on with this client, or you remind me of this, or this is exactly what we solve. And I talk a little bit about what that customer story looks like, what that challenge was, what we can do. The kicker, and where I think kind of just the magic of what I do on a discovery call, where that comes in, is as soon as I've kind of described what we do, I immediately move on to Roman numeral 2. They don't even have a chance to dig into that. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that buyer to be like, oh, I want that as often as I humanly possibly can on that call. We have a deck about this for the perfect discovery call, and we have a Napoleon Dynamite meme in it, GIF in it, where she's like, I want that, when it tries to like tear the plastic. Am I dating myself? Does anybody know Napoleon Dynamite on this call? Please, for the love of God, thank God. But I think that's the kicker, right? Like people are like, that sounds awesome. And then I'm like, nope, you can't have that. Let's move on to point number 2. Then I do that again and again and again. And by the time we get to the end of these calls, most people are just so fucking excited about what we can do and how we can help them that they're like, this is incredible. So I know we're running short on time. They'll say that to me. And then they're like, what would be great is, can you walk us through some of these solutions and some examples? I'm going to bring these other 19 people on from my side, and I'm going to be like, yes, right? Like I don't even have to ask. I don't have to book the next call. I don't have to multi-thread. I don't have to be like, who's the ultimate decision maker? And I would never say that, by the way. But I don't have to do any of that stuff. Because if I work through that flow, right, as often as I possibly can, tell a story, use customer stories, use customer testimonials, show them that I understand, right? I'm going to win 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, at least to get to the next call. Just a few other things I'm going to mention, and then I'm going to stop talking. I promise, again, stop talking. When they're going through their stream of consciousness, right, through that exercise, I do want to show that I'm paying attention. So, you know, some head nods in there, some crinkly eyes when they tell me something that they hate. I'm like, oh, and they're like, I know. And I'm like, okay, I don't even have to say anything, but they know that I understand what they're going through, right? Just by my gestures and things like that. It's a way for me to build nonverbal rapport, right? I'm just kind of communicating in a languagey way. Now, let's say we get to the end of the call and they're like, that all sounds great. And you're like, no shit. Okay, I do have to close the call. I do have to book the next meeting. Now what do I do? The thing that I would tell you is to think about what I love to call double the quantity or double the quality from call number 1 to call number 2. And this applies basically for every call. So what I'm looking to do is I'm trying to figure out, right, if I get Scott on the phone, and you guys might also, I'm sure none of you are in this bucket, but a lot of people make the mistake of being like, I've got Scott. I've got the decision maker. He holds the budget. He owns the company. I'm good to go. What you want to remember is Scott has a buying committee around him, right? Your buyers all have a buying committee around him. Influencers, skeptics, users, legal, procurement, all those people. Sucks. You got to woo all of them. But what I want to do is I want to speed my way through those people as quickly as I possibly can, right? Like great gong data to show that the more people that you get on the buyer side, the better off you are. It's literally a no lose deal. So get those people on. So I'll close the call and say something along these lines and say, all right, so it sounds like we can solve an inordinate amount of your challenges. Why don't we do this? Why don't we grab a second call? Let me give you a tour of our technology. Let me give you a tour of our products, our services, our offering, whatever it is that you guys do. And let's outline what we can do for you specifically aligned with what you told me about today. How does that sound? And they're like, that sounds amazing. And you're like, I know. And then we close it out by saying, I'll send an invite along. Let's look at this time. Anyone else's calendars I should factor in, or anybody else on your end that you think would find benefit in what we can do, or anybody else that you think would need to see this before deciding if it's a good solution for you. All of those things are client-centric. It's not me saying, who's your boss? Who's the DM? Who else is involved in this decision? It's not me asking salesy bant questions, right? It's me just saying, how else can I help you guys? You also want to think about shifting the perspective of us versus them as prospects, right? Especially if you get somebody who's like, I have to have you. This is exactly what we need. You guys are a team now. You guys are trying to figure out how to get your leaders to say yes to discounts or whatever the hell it is, and their leaders to say yes to bringing you on, or their teams to say yes to bringing you on. So you're in cahoots now, right? So saying like, okay, how do we speed this up internally? What can I do to be of most help to you to get as many people on the call and get this done as quickly as possible? If you've got enthusiasm, we've all been with those prospects who are like, this is amazing. And you're like, this is going to be the easiest sale of my career. Just have that honest conversation. Last thing on that front, when you do send out invites, make sure I always list my name first. So #SamSales in our meeting invite. I want people to see that as often as they possibly can in their calendars. I'll always send a thank you note to the person that I met, just to say thanks so much for your time. Really looking forward to continuing the conversation. And then I connect with everybody on LinkedIn. So immediately, even if we haven't met yet, right? I'll make sure to connect with those people and say, really looking forward to our upcoming call that Scott invited you to. Can't wait to see how Sam Sales can help company. Talk to you Friday or whatever it may be. Easy way for them to see who you are in advance of the meeting and build that credibility. And
I'm gonna ask the first couple of questions, and then I've got a few people, and it'll give people some time maybe to think of some others. You talked a little bit about this rapport building bit at the front. I was on a call being pitched the other day, and it was a 30-minute block, and I timed it, and they spent 8 minutes and 16 seconds just chit-chatting with me about surfing and whatever else that we were talking about. And all I could think of was, oh my God, get to the point. Like, how much rapport building do we need? I was like, this is enough foreplay. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? So my
what is
question
swaddling?
was,
I've never heard of this. What? Just kidding.
yeah. So I'm just trying to, I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, like, how does one know when they've asked enough kind of questions early on and built enough kind of rapport or established enough nicety where they can kind of move towards getting to the point?
I think this is the tough part. And this is also where like the magic of being who you are comes into play, because you need to read the room. So kind of like the same thing as the first date, right? Like, can you read the room? Can you read the signals of the person? If I get on with Scott, right, and I'm like, hey, like, oh my God, I just saw your pictures in Costa Rica. I'm dying to go there. I haven't been, then Scott will probably flip the tables and be like, why don't you sign up for surf and sales? And I'll be like, fuck. Right. But like, let's just say,
it's actually very accurate.
Right. I know what's coming. But if he's like, oh my God, you have to go there, if he's engaged and he's like giving me more information and he's trying to continue the conversation, then I can keep it going. If Scott's like, yeah, it's cool, you should go. And if I'm like, yeah, so like, how was it when you guys were down there? Scott's gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, get to it, right? Yeah. So I need to be able to read the room. I will say, like, I've had discovery calls where we don't even end up talking about business. Like, we do end up talking about the 30-minute for the whole 28 minutes, let's say, about whatever it is that we're building rapport, because that person's engaged and then they ask questions and then we can't stop. And then they're like, okay, one more tangent. And then I promise we'll get to business. And then we never do. With the right audience in mind, maybe not Scott, but with the right audience in mind, that can be everything. That can be the game changer, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to do business with people that they can tolerate. Scott and I were just talking about that. We have a no assholes rule. We don't want to work with assholes anymore, right? We just don't. We want to work with people that we like. And that's on both sides of the table, not just from the buyer's perspective, from the seller's perspective too. So you definitely need to read the room. If you're not sure if you're good at this, like, this is where like gone chorus, like all that shit is wonderful, because send it to your boss and say, did I do this right? Am I reading the room correctly? What signal didn't I pick up on, right? What pause or inflection or like flat mouth stare did I not pick up on that I should have, so I can be better at this?
On that point right there, for the sales leaders in the room, when you're listening to calls with your team, one of the things that I love to do is I just hit the pause button and I say, did you hear that right there?
Totally.
And a lot of reps are like, no, wait, what are you talking about? And I rewind it 15 seconds. I'm like, I'm gonna play it again. I play it. I'm like, do you hear that right there? Their tone changed or something like that. Like, they're done. They want you to push on and get to the point. Like, that's a good way to kind of coach to that for those of you who are in the sales leader role. Go ahead.
That's the most fun, frankly, one of the most fun things to get to do from my perspective as a sales leader, right? Is get to listen to those calls and pause. Like, when we do that as teams, right? Like, we'll work with organizations and say, like, let's listen to your calls together, right? Some poor brave AE is going to say, like, let's listen to my call. And then we pause it for better and for worse, right? But like, what did we miss here? What was good here? What could we have done? What did she really ask? He didn't answer the question. She didn't address that. Like, unpacking that stuff piece by piece by piece is a ridiculously amazing use of time. I love how you do that, Scott.
Nice. One other question, and then I'll jump to Charlie and Nick and Jessica, who all had questions. I think you framed these as active listening kinds of questions, but on your discovery, you want to avoid these questions that are easy to respond with a quick yes or no, right?
Totally.
So can you give a couple of examples
Yes.
of how to reframe some of those types of questions that would elicit conversation and dialogue rather than, no, yes, no, right?
I think the closed-ended questions are the worst, right? Does that make sense? Did that help? Any questions?
No. That one kills me the most. Any questions so far?
Any questions so far? Okay, great. Oh. Let me continue to talk about myself for 13 minutes.
Yeah.
I think just think about these questions, right? And maybe this is also not you doing it on the fly, but kind of rehearsing and saying, what can I ask at this point, right? One of the things I just love to do is to say, let me pause here for a second. I've given you a lot of information. I'd love your feedback. And also, by the way, these pauses are intentional when I'm saying these to people, because I want them, I'm such a fast talker, as you guys know, but I want them to have a second to know that, like, they're not going to be put on the spot a little, and that I want their feedback. So let me pause here. I've given you a lot of information. I'd love your feedback. shit, okay, I have to say something. Okay, got it. Tell me your thoughts here so far. How would this apply to you? How is this resonating with you? Give me a little bit of what's in your head when you see this first part of what I just showed you. They can't be like, it's good. I mean, they can, right? And then they suck. Cool, what's good about it? Like, then you really have to like pull it out of them. But understanding what that is, right? Understanding how this would apply to them. Tell me a little bit about how this would help your team. Tell me about how this would solve your challenge. Tell me how you can see this applying to the people that you're working with or the initiatives that you are running. There goes my sales assembly mug. This is what I want to do, right? I want to ask these active listening questions, not an open-ended questions, not the yes or no. You just have to think, if I ask this question, am I going to get something valuable in return? And if I'm not, then we need to change that question up. I would say just one important thing here, important call out. Think about too, the question behind a question. Has anybody heard that before? Familiar to you? By the way, Taylor Evans, I 100% looked at you and thought you were Dale Dupree that was sinking in. Do you ever hear this? Do you know Dale? Oh my God. I was like, shit, Dale showed up. What's up? Anyway, come on. Question behind the question. So my very first job when I was 16 was at Disney. I was born in Switzerland. I moved to the States. I grew up in Orlando and I was a lifeguard at Typhoon Lagoon. It was legit. Got to go to the wave pool, ride the slides at the end of your shift. It was awesome. 16-year-old dream come true. But one of the things that was really cool is on your very first day, you learn all the stuff about Disney, right? And like you go through this extensive training and they teach you about the question behind the question. So think about this on every single sales call you have. Question behind the question relates to what the most popular question is that Disney gets every single day. And that is not, where's the bathroom? But it is, what time is the 3 o'clock parade? What's at 3 o'clock? If you are like 95% of sales reps, you are saying it's at 3 o'clock. Does that answer your question? And the person's like, yeah. And you're like, awesome. And then you walk away and you're like, I'm amazing, right? Or if you are like 5% of sales reps, you are looking at the situation like Disney teaches you. Who's asking this question? Are they a family? Are they tall? Are they short? Somebody in a wheelchair? Do they actually want to see the parade? Are they trying to get the hell out of the park to Space Mountain? What is it that they're trying to do? I'm pointing as if I'm still standing in the park, which is amazing 400 years later. The same thing happens on your sales calls. So if I get a question, right, I want to think about why are they asking? Even if it is blindingly obvious to you, why are they asking? So I have 3 choices in answering these questions. My first choice is to say, let's say somebody's like, hey, do you have an app? Could you have an app we can integrate with? Do you have an app where we can track dashboards, access content, integrates with Salesforce, whatever? Do you have an app? I can say, we sure do. Does that answer your question? And they'll be like, yes. And I'll be like, great. And then I'll move on. I can say, we sure do. And I can talk about myself for the next 17 minutes. Or I can say, we do, but is this even important to them, right? And so I would say, yes, no, maybe it depends. And I have a few more things to tell you about that, but tell me a little bit more about why you're asking or why this might be important. You will unpack a treasure trove of details from just asking this, just pause. And I'll tell you what, I don't want to spend 17 minutes talking about an app that they might not give a shit about. I want to talk about other things for 17 minutes that I know they care about. So when I say we do have an app and I have some things to tell you, but tell me a little bit more about why that's important. I might get like, this is hugely important. The incumbent doesn't have it, or we do have it and it's treacherous, or it doesn't do this, or it costs us money, or our reps hate it, nobody uses it, whatever that is. Now I'm like, again, firing range of like running all these details, writing all these details down on paper, thinking about how I can use this to my advantage. This is my sales lever, one of many to close this deal. Or they're saying like, it doesn't really matter to us, we were just curious. And I'm like, okay, moving right along to whatever it is that you do care about, right? So I can use that to pivot. But just think like, it's not our job to rush to answer this question and then be like, ta-da! It's our job to understand why they're asking. So that question behind the question is it is a game changer. Give it a shot. You'll see what'll come out of their mouths, right? What they'll give you. And you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I have not been doing this my whole life.
Yeah. Let's go to Charlie.
What's up, Sam?
Hey, Charlie. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing? I was actually putting my daughter to bed, and her one stuffed animal is called Lammy, and I called it Sammy, and she lost her mind laughing. She's like, "It's not Sammy," because I was listening to you talk.
You're so wrong, Dad.
I know. I'm always wrong. I had a question about like when you're doing your research, obviously you've like phrased show me you know me, but like outside of LinkedIn, like what are your go-to resources to research somebody? Obviously you could spend forever doing that, but like what are your go-tos? How far do you go down the path of like getting to know somebody or finding something you could use to really kind of personalize that?
So I think before I even say that, one kind of myth to debunk, there's been some like super senior sales reps that I've worked with who do not believe that show me you know me or research in advance is necessary. It will tell you why that is so false, right? If you show up to a call and someone's like, hey, can tell you about us, would love to hear about you, and you get someone that's like, totally, what do you know about us? And you will absolutely get that. You are dead in the water. There is no recovering from that. I know reps who show up to calls who have absolutely no idea what the company even does for a living. Are you an oil company or a software company? No idea. So even if you are in a rush, spend 3 to 5 minutes, know what the company does, know how to pronounce the name correctly. Really important, right? But do that research in advance. I would say, to me, the platforms that are on limits, so to speak, obviously LinkedIn, and frankly, whatever is on LinkedIn is fair game. I know some people who hesitate, pulling the personal information off of LinkedIn and using that. Some people like Charlie, like you might be like, girl dad, and you might have that written on LinkedIn. And then someone's like, I don't know if I can say that. Like it's on LinkedIn, it's on his professional profile. We can absolutely use it. It's out there for a reason. I think Twitter is still fair game. People are pretty widely out there on Twitter if they are on Twitter at all. And then I would say anything that you can Google that is like professionally relevant. So if we can find that they've spoken at conferences, on a podcast, written an article, something like that, totally fine. I think that that's about it for me, unless they are some kind of TikTok sensation, like many of our buyers are, or they're a huge Instagram influencer or something like that. I would not use any other social media. I do find it incredibly creepy when people are like, I tried to find you on Instagram, and I'm like, great. How'd that go for you? Right? Just weird. Or like, I will say just, be aware of like, your gender and who you're talking to too. I had an old rep who was a male, not a male who was old, but a rep who would say like, I don't mean to come across as stalkery. And I'm like, can we not use that?
Too late.
Yeah. Just move right past that. But I think otherwise that's great. On that note too, if you're thinking about how to be better with outbound emails or be structuring your show me, you know me better in subject lines, think about that too, what they've spoken on, what they've written, etc. Use their own language and throw it in the subject line. So when people say like, show me, you know me, plus like whatever the hell else they're pulling from where I've spoken, it's a great way to get my attention, frankly, just because you took 2 seconds to do your homework and earn that response.
Can I ask a follow-up question on behalf of Charlie and everybody else? Would you say that the more obscure the connection or relevant piece of information is, that it has a larger impact?
Yeah, so I think to a degree, but like, yeah. So I'll give you a good example. We were helping a client go after, it's not quite obscure, but it's different. So we were helping a client go after Tesla and figure out how to do that. You guys have all heard of compelling events. Use a compelling event. That's how you're going to get in front of someone. What you want to think about is everybody knows about compelling events. So if you're going to use one, everybody else is too. And if you're going to use the more obvious one,
everybody else is too, right?
Yeah, for sure. So when we were doing this was when Tesla had their 5th quarter of positive earnings. They got on the S&P 500, and then our client was like, we have a genius idea. We're going to use the S&P 500 in our show me, you know me, and our subject line. And I'm like, cool, you and everybody else. So just take a second, do your research. We found Tesla was doing these really cool pop-ups in EMEA, and they were educating customers on renewable energy, about Tesla, about home Tesla, about all that shit. And so we used that. We said European pop-ups plus company name of our client, right? And that's what we use to get in front of people. Insane response rate, 34% response rate to that. Incredible, right? It was a way to scale show me, you know me. We didn't have to do a lick of effort other than just look 2 lines down in the articles in the press that were coming out. And we even got people who were responding and saying, of all of the congrats on the S&P 500, yours is the email that stood out. And we're like, what's up? We're so excited. So that stuff is so simple, but think of something obscure, right? Or pull something from back in the day.
Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I completely agree. I I'm a little tired of like, hey, I listened to you on this podcast and you said this thing. I get it. It's a little bit of effort and I appreciate that. But I also get it when somebody's like, hey, I know that you were at your kid's soccer tournament this last weekend because you tweeted this thing.
Oh.
Sounds like they lost in the semifinals. My kid also lost in the semifinals, and I also kicked my dog in frustration. This was really a tough sports weekend for all of us dads.
Don't kick your dog, Scott.
It's a metaphor, Sam. It's just a joke. It's a joke. It's not a real thing. The point is like, that is different. I don't hear that all the time. And so it stands out. It's more unique. And so I think to me, I that resonates with me because it cuts through the noise of sameness, right?
You have to like authentically tie it, just like that guy did to Scott. And on our chat today, Kim is hanging out today. She's our VP of enablement. I know she's laughing because we see like some of just the worst examples of people trying to show me you know me, but there's no connection. So like that person could have reached out to Scott and be like, I saw you tweeted about the soccer game. Do you want to buy our video platform? Scott's like, yes. No, what the fuck about the soccer game? Like something, right? Or someone's like, I saw you like chocolates. Would you like to buy our sales training?
I also like chocolate. Buy my shit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fine. Like, it's fine if it's obscure. It's fine if it's something super personal that they have like out there, you know, on their LinkedIn profile or whatever, but like find a tie to it. Our, somebody on our team did a great job. Somebody was talking about how like they had posts on LinkedIn about having their first kid was the scariest moment of their life. Our rep was like 8 months pregnant and she was like, I'm going to write about that. And we're like, go for it. And he wrote back and he's like, let me give you all this advice. Right. And like, they have a relationship now and they've never met. He took a meeting. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Charlie, for getting us going on that. Let's go to Nick.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, Samantha. So my question is more centered around approaching discovery calls with my competitors' customers, since that's a really big, that's top of mind for me. And so right now, my approach with kicking off the calls is kind of walking through some client examples of problems that we solve and kind of digging from there to figure out if there's any, points that we can kind of, position us to kind of show our value. I'd be interested to hear how you would approach those calls compared to a regular discovery call.
Yeah, great question. So I think key thing to remember is if this is inbound or outbound as a meeting that you've booked. Are these typically outbound where you're trying to get their attention, or have they already shown interest?
100% outbound.
Okay, cool. Those are the toughest too, because you're like, thanks for letting me talk to you about our stuff. Yeah. So I think I would address it head on, right? And just to say, I've done some research. It appears you use this technology, which is one of our competitors. Before I tell you about us and everything, love to hear a little bit about your experience, if that's okay. Things you love, things you wish that could be different. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use it, value you get out of it? We'd just love to understand your experience. And it seems like you were just asking, like, tell me how you use it and what's great, but hopefully somewhere in there, they'll be like, don't even get me started on this piece of crap or this thing that happened or whatever, right? We'll pick that up, but you can still start it the same way. Just come at it from a position of being client-centric.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Nick, who do you work for, by the way?
I work for Smarter Sorting. We're a Series A startup in Austin right now, and we are trying to displace this really big incumbent. So it's really exciting, but really fucking hard at the same time to try to do this at 26. But I love it.
Oh man, what does Smarter Sorting do?
So we're a data company. So we work with like retailers, like our 3 customers are Albertsons, Costco, and Wegmans. And we provide environmental compliance and sustainability data. And so, right now we're talking to a bunch of the retailers, and it's a battle, but I like it a lot.
Right on. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jessica, let's go to your question.
Hey, Sam. Thanks, Scott. So my question had to do with when you were talking about opening the call, and it was, you had said, you don't want to assume and you want to find out things about why they're coming to the call, or, why they accepted your invite. But I hear a lot about going in with a POV, and sometimes too, I'm kind of right now in a position, I work for Lessonly, And
Yeah.
when I speak with sales enablement people, it's one type of conversation. But Lessonly just got acquired by Seismic, and there you're on maybe with the CRO, or like it's a different conversation. And I feel like it goes like with enablement, I can say, tell me what you envision, all this stuff. But when then I'm on with the CRO, I better have, like, I feel like I need to have more of a point of view, more of, no, this is why you need us. And so I was wondering about what your take is on how much of a POV to have, because sometimes I feel like I have verbal diarrhea when I come in too strong with it. And like, how much does the audience matter? Because I'm feeling like it matters a lot.
Totally. So I think a couple of things. So when did you join Lessonly?
It's pretty new. It was in September. So yeah.
I missed you. I spoke at their SKO this year. And we just sent Megan Brazina, your sales enablement person, a Sam Sales onesie. She just had a baby literally yesterday. So
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
Lessonly's a great company and Kyle's awesome. You're in good hands there. So I think a couple things. Your narrative and a point of view is definitely important, right? But we also want to measure when we're supposed to bring this in. So if we come in hard charging and saying, let me tell you everything that I know, right, we're going to miss the mark. For me, the thing that I always like to do is I'm temperature checking throughout the entire call. I want to know, what you think, right? I want to know if you have a strong opinion about something, because then I will have a strong opinion about that as well. Hopefully we agree. I also want to get a sense of what your temperament and your mood is for our solution, or for even changing. If I get a CRO on the call, right, first I would probably say something like, I'm thrilled to speak to you. So often we're speaking to these roles. Like, I'd love to know a little bit from your perspective, what interested you in meeting with us today, specifically around sales enablement, or what you can change about that, or how you're using it, right? So I am using that, what interested you in taking our call today, but I'm not leaving it flat. I'm giving that kind of point of view, why I'm asking you as a CRO. Keep in mind, you guys, and this, but you're going to have a different conversation with your CRO than you're going to have with a sales enablement manager. So it's really important that you come to the table with a point of view that is executive level versus kind of manager level. So if we come in and we're like, let me show you a demo of how to use this technology, versus saying, here's how this is going to impact your team and ultimately impact your revenue. That's what the CRO cares about. He doesn't care about the weeds. She doesn't care about how the system integrates with that. She wants to know that you are going to make a difference to their financial model one way or another, or to the impact to their reps that will impact their revenue and then impact their goals and probably their bonus, and then go from there. So I would start there and get that information out of them. To me, the narrative and the point of view comes in with that, kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet framework that I gave you, of saying, let me ask you a question, let me give you this, and then saying, that reminds me of, or this makes me think of, this is something you really want to consider as you're switching platforms, or you're doing this, you're investing more in training, etc. So that's where your point of view is coming out. Even still, when I give this information, right, for Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3, I want to move on quickly, because I don't want them to unpack that one thing. I want them to say, well, that's a smart point of view. That's a great story. I want that. And I just want them to do that as quickly and as often as I can on that call, right? Keeping it like normal speed. But if I can get that at the end of the call, they're going to say like, shit, there's so much that we can do here. There's so much we're thinking about. Like, what else do you know that we don't know? I've just given them just the little tip of the iceberg about what we can do. And then they're going to want to unpack every single thing that we can on the next call, which will hopefully motivate them to bring additional people on. Yeah.
Okay. So just to make sure that I got what you just gave. So when you're in that framework, weave it in where I would do the customer story, maybe give either raise a caution or say, hey, something to think about there,
Totally.
but then move on fast. So
you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, unless there's if there really is an opportunity to dig in deep here, if you're like, this is the critical, deal making point, like we really want to hammer home on this, or we have such a differentiator between us and our competitors here, I want to dig in a little deeper. But the more that you can give them some insight of what what they're missing, right? And say like, I know 98% more than I'm even giving you. I'm only giving you a little taste of what I know, the better. if we can be consultative on these calls, if we can show them what's in our brain, if we can tell them that we understand how to advise them on what to do in the next steps or how to move forward or how to build a better enablement program, that's going to be something that is a differentiator to us because we're a partner. We're not just like, hello, here's the features and the benefits of Lessonly. We are have you thought about this in structuring your enablement program? Have you thought about how retention works? Have you thought about how to train and then do this follow-up? No, we haven't thought of any of that. Okay, some really important things to consider. Let's talk about your point number 2 that you asked. And they're like, wait, I have so many questions here, which you'll get on call 2 and call 3 when we have more people on the call.
Awesome. Thanks. And I'm catching up on writing. So, but
thanks. Thank you for showing me your pen and telling me.
Yeah. Thanks, Jessica.
Awesome. Thanks.
Living and
Sam.
learning. Thanks, Jessica.
Nat, you're up, Nat.
Cool. Thanks for hosting, and nice to see you, Scott, again.
Hey, good.
Hey, Samantha. Great
Hey,
call.
Nat.
Great meeting here. Kind of taking notes as well. I have a quick follow-up question on what Nick was asking earlier, just kind of a minute ago on competition. So my question is this: how to address a situation when there was no competitor involved previously, early in the discovery process, but now they do, and they really like the competition?
So are they already on the call with you?
No, they're not. I just kind of learned it from a champion of mine in that company, and he told me that, hey, my boss is also looking at alternatives, and I think he's talking to X, and I'm kind of ambushed there.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. Let's think about if you are, already on this call. If you are on this call, a lot of people get stuck, right? Well, they will get on a discovery call and someone's like, everything's great. We love the competition. We're in good shape. No one in their right mind shows up to a discovery call that is completely happy with something. It's like you're engaged and you show up on a first date. Why are you here? Why are you even here? Why'd you show up? Right? So even though it's painful sometimes, it's our job to figure that out. That's awesome. Love that you hear that. I think we do have some competitive advantages. Tell me a little bit about what you love about it. Like, how do you use the technology? How is it applicable? How do you use the service? Share a little bit about what you love so much about it. We know as they're going to talk, right? There are threads that we can pull where we do things better. Important for us to figure that out. If you don't get that, the person's being a jerk, it's okay to sort of be a jerk back and just say, help me understand what I can give you insight to, what to do to make best use out of your time with us today. It sounds like you're happy and that's great. So what can I do to be of help to you at this point? Why the hell did you show up to this call if you're so happy? Oh, well, I just like to see what's out there. And like, okay, well, if the product could be better, like what could it do? What doesn't it do for you? Let's see if we can
I pause you there? Is that the exact phrasing that you use? I think you just said, if I could rewind the tape, something like, what could be better there? Are you totally happy with that? I'm wondering if you can try to get the exact pitch down, because one of the things that I say, and I try to make it kind of goofy, as I say, listen, if you could wave a magic wand and change something or fix one thing about that particular product that you love so much, what would it be?
Totally right. Yeah.
Just wondering what your phrasing is for that.
Ask that, so it sounds like you're happy. I'd love to know a little bit more about, what we can do to make best use of this call, or maybe even thinking about the product, right? What could be better about it? Maybe what could I show you that's different about us, that would have the product serve you better? Tell me about that. And maybe they're still going to be a jerk and just say like, nothing, we love it. We just wanted to see it, and like, okay, well, great. Like, feel free to visit our website, sign up for our newsletters, take care. Thanks for wasting my time.
Would you push back at all on that? Because if somebody said to me, no, everything's great, again, I would hit them with the magic wand thing and be like, seriously?
Yeah, nothing.
Like, you have
it's
all
perfect.
the power in the universe. You have godlike powers to snap your fingers and fix something, and you would fix nothing?
They have a perfect NPS score. There's nothing that can be changed.
So
something.
Would you push back? Would you push back at all? I would at least push back once.
I would push back once. I think it also depends on your personality, right? So if you feel comfortable doing that pushback, some of us don't, but I totally would. Like, really, there's nothing. I would make it humorous too. Like, there's gotta be something. Tell me one thing that they're doing incorrectly.
That's why I do the goofy magic wand thing.
The magic wand. Think about this too. Like, when we are talking about our competitors, you guys know this, but we always want to be super positive, right? We want to talk about them in a positive light and say, I actually don't know that much about, their onboarding or their customer success. What I can tell you about, though, from a product perspective, here's where I think we have some good edges. You're not like, these guys are idiots. It's kind of just like an interview. We never want to throw, please, for the love of God, we never want to throw our current employer under the bus, right? But you also want to think about with this, competitive wise, how can you think about the competition and how can you get them to start talking about or realizing that they're missing out on things? It's kind of like, okay, we'll go with the dating example. Let's say you're talking to someone, you're talking to a girl and she already has, somebody that she's with, and you're like, that's so awesome. I'm so glad you're happy. How often does your sorry, you guys. How often does your boyfriend bring you flowers? And she's like, oh, never. Oh, that's weird. I do that every week for my girlfriend. Anyway, you want to like throw this stuff in, like tell you, right? You know the stuff that your competition is missing already. So ask the questions, that where you're going to get these answers. Like, tell me about how they integrate with Salesforce. Oh, they don't. Oh, we do. Would this be beneficial to you? Like, this is how we're going to start to pull these threads. This is also where your competitive data cards and your battle cards are really important. You understanding the competition is really important. Even if there's like 16 of them out there and you're like, how in the hell am I going to learn all this? Think about 2 that are the most frequently raised competitors, right? And become experts in them. I crushed this when I was an AE. I could tell you everything that sucks about our competitors in a light, positive way.
Yeah. That was
helpful
good.
Now?
Thanks.
Yeah,
that was good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you see how she changed her tone when she was like, "Oh, that's weird. I send my girlfriend flowers every week." Anyways, and she just kept on going. She just mumbled it out. So good.
Right? Yeah, I'm getting you to think about that and be like, I want that, and then move on, and then I'm going to do that again.
So good. So good. All right, Brent, you're up. Brent Cole.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, Samantha. Thanks for joining tonight.
Hey, yeah, thanks, man.
Ironically, I ran into this twice, and I want to paint a quick scenario. I was in a discovery call. It's never happened to me before. And I'm painting a situation like, hey, tell me about your challenges. How's that impacting you? How often is that happening? How long do you have to spend fixing that problem? I'm trying to quantify the issue.
Yeah.
Then at the end, I'm like, okay, because I know what our software can do. I'm like, if I could remove that off your plate and give you those 9 hours back a week for this consistent problem, how would that impact your business and your day to day? And I'm not kidding, on like 2 discovery calls in like a 48-hour window, someone was like, that's a good question. I have no idea. And they just stopped there. And I was like, wait a minute, like kind of like Scott said earlier, wait a minute, you don't know what you would do with 9 or 10 hours back in a week? Like I could rattle off 30 things I'd do if I could get 10 hours back. Yeah. What would you do when you feel like you've quantified the issue and then you're trying to get to the big, like, hey, what would you do with that time back? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, great question. So I think every time we ask a question, one, we want to anticipate that we already know what the answer is that's going to come back. And even if it comes back in a sticky way like that, we want to have a point of view. So kind of to Jessica's point, like let's have a narrative, let's have a point of view on something, right? Start to help them get their wheels cranking. This is where you become a consultant versus just a sales rep. And so you say, if they're like, well, I don't know, right? If they say they don't know, by the way, what they would do with another 9 hours, we need to get them out of the way as fast as we possibly can and up the chain because they have no idea what the hell they're doing. So let's move on to decision makers as quickly as we can. If they are the decision makers, we have a whole nother problem. But I think come with a point of view of what you would do with that time and say, here's what some of our clients have been able to do. When we recapture this amount of time, here are the priorities they can address, or here are the 2 or 3 other things that our teams want to focus on. And with this recapture time, they can focus on that. Do you guys currently do these 3 things? Are these initiatives for you? Like what else are priorities that always seem to fall by the wayside for you guys? Tell me a little bit about that, right? So hopefully it gets them thinking too about cross-functional partners, other teams, other initiatives they want to run, and to say, you know what, if we could save this time, maybe we could do this, or we could work on this with enablement or whoever it is. But have that point of view ready. I think the thing too, we're always really quick to trust our prospects, but we're quick to assume that they're intelligent, which many of them are. Many of them are also not, right? They need our help of how to drive a deal, what to do, how to buy, what they'll get out of this. Half the time, like, and I'll tell you just this very, very unpopular opinion. that I think I have. But I always like to float that we have some room for negotiating on price. Now, before you yell at me, here's why. Right, Scott, hold on. Here's the thing. So when I send a proposal out, we're I think quick to assume that our prospects know that they can negotiate, or they can say, you know what, we'll sign a 3-year deal. If we buy 100 licenses versus 10, is there room? We've had prospects, I know you guys have lost deals with this, where they're like, hey, we went with somebody else and we already signed the contract in the 8 minutes since we hung up. And we're like, wait, why? And they're like, they were $100 cheaper. And you're like, oh my God, what? Like, I could have been $100 cheaper. What the shit? So what I just like to say, right, when we talk about room for negotiation, is just to say, listen, like, here's our proposal. Here's what our structure looks like. If we think that this is going to be something that we're going to sell, that we're going to be able to expose multiple lines of business, or we're going to sell long-term, or that we, could double or triple the amount of licenses, right? There's some levers that we can pull from a pricing perspective, but here's where we are based on what we heard. Let's keep the conversation going and figure out what you ultimately need. So this isn't like, if you sign by the 31st, you'll get 98% off, because fuck that noise. But other than that, right, there are levers that you can pull. Buy 100 licenses instead of 10, and I'll discount the shit out of this. Maybe not the shit, but a little bit. So let's think that our clients aren't naturally as intelligent as we think they are. We assume they are, or that they're thinking the same things that you are. This is where you get to be the consultant and bring ideas forward and teach them how to buy, what to do with that recapture time.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. I couldn't believe I ran into 2 people in back-to-back calls that were like, I don't know what I would do with extra time back in my week. So
don't refer to those people to me or Scott.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we don't want anything to do with them.
They sound bright.
Yeah, they sound perfect for Amy. Send them to Amy.
Send them to Amy. She'll love them.
Yeah, she'll love them. She'll love them. I have a question for you. And
Yeah.
talk to us about the importance of the discovery process being the same over and over and over versus mixing it up depending on, I don't know, who you're talking to, what you think might work suddenly, what you heard last night on this thing. How similar are all these calls? If I played back the tape of Samantha's last 20 discovery calls, would I find like, oh, there's that question 20 times in a row, or are they all different? Talk about that a little bit, if you will.
I think you're going to find, for me anyway, that part of my success as a rep is testing all of my methods out and seeing what works and what converts the most. So at this point in my career, you're getting pretty much the same thing day in and day out. You might get different, factoids or narratives or things like that, but my process flow is my process flow. Now
because you've dialed it in.
Yeah, because I know what works, right? I'm confident. Like it's like this is so maddening. And for any of you guys who have to hear me on a future training, I'm sorry. I make the same jokes over and over again. Every time I do a training, I make the same jokes. I am so sick of them, but they still work. And I use them because I know they work, right? Most people laugh. Some people laugh. But I use the same material because I know.
That's one of the things that sets superstars apart, though. It's like, that it works. And even though you're yourself a little irritated by it, you keep doing it. Whereas a lot of people who fuck themselves off, they're like, oh, I know this works, but I'm going to do something different. And all of a sudden that thing stops working, and they refuse to go back to the thing that they know worked because it's old or tired or boring or whatever. Right?
Yeah, no, use it because you know it works and it's going to give you what you need. So you will hear that more often than not, 85-90% of the time. How we kick off a call, love to tell you about Scam Sales, but tell us about you first. It's just what we use day in and day out. We might switch it up, right? Depending on the temperament or the needs or the speed, the response of the client, whatever. There's times where that definitely changes, but otherwise, if we're dealing with just a run-of-the-mill standard, I'm trying to figure out what to do, right? We're asking the same questions, we're using the same format, etc. Couple of things where that'll change if we really know the person, right? Like if we have a relationship with this person and they're bringing their team on, and let's say they've worked with us before multiple times, we're going to show up and I would say something like, Scott, like, good to see you, blah, blah, blah. Great to meet the rest of your team. Okay, so let me actually pass the buck to you. Like, what would you like to do? Do you want to make a round of introductions on your side? Like, tell me what we can do to make, again, best use of our time today. So I'm not going to be like, Scott, Luce, I can tell you about Sam sales. Can be like, I know it, right? So I would shift that, right? And I would put the power, kind of like we talked about earlier. If I'm on my second or third call and new people come on, I'm going to put the power on the most senior person that I have a relationship with and say, you tell me where you want to go with this call before I just make assumptions and start to run. But otherwise, you know, the process flow is pretty much the same.
Okay.
Test that out, you guys, though. If you are early in your career, if you are like Nick and you're 26 and you're still just trying to figure it out, if you are 40 and trying to figure it out and you're new to sales, try these things, see how they resonate, take note of that, right? And kind of build your perfect call.
Speaking of Nick has another question.
Let's hear it, man.
Off mute, Nick.
Hey, so a big thing that I deal with is I'm really anti-slides in the discovery call, and the president of our company is not. And this is a big thing that we've told each other to fuck off on multiple times. We love each other to death, so we have that relationship. I'd be interested to hear your opinion on slides and presentations in that first call. If that's something that you would recommend reps to leverage, because I don't. But want to hear your opinion.
I want to sit in on your call with you telling your CEO to fuck off. That's awesome. Kudos to you and the bravery you bring to that conversation. I personally think slides suck in general for every call. Now, I'll just say, like, there are some products, like we work with a 700 seller organization here in DC who has a ridiculously boring, ridiculously technical, hopefully they're not on, technical product, right? So we can't really go through a demo. We're not showing them, you know, SaaS technology. We're talking about like 1,700 systems to integrate and plug, and then, oh my God, like it's sad. But I think other than that, like, slides suck and slides are a crutch. There are no slides in a discovery call. There just aren't, like, there shouldn't be. This is a call for us to find out about you, not for us to talk about ourselves. That's it, plain and simple. So I would say that, like, how are we discovering them if we're presenting about ourselves? Like, I hear you. I can't wait to put up my slides, CEO. How would you like me to accomplish this? You tell me. I think beyond that, slides are just a crutch. They're a way for us to go through a deck. We say the same garbage over and over again. It's not specific to that buyer. When we get to the demo, there are some really good things called, what was it, last summer, Scott and I were on one of these together, and it was a disaster when we did replays live. Remember those?
Oh my God, I totally remember, yes.
Who was it that we did? Was ours Outreach?
Vidyard,
yeah, that's right.
I'm almost positive it was Vidyard.
Yeah, anyway.
I was maybe not so gentle.
As you shouldn't have been. Anyway, there are recordings of really brave reps who went up and did part disco, part demo for us. One of them used slides the entire time, and we, as the executive team, kept saying, like, we've got a specific question, and the rep was like, if I can just finish my slide presentation. We're like just awful. The demo, right? Our calls should be focused around showing them how this can apply to them, showing them around the things that we heard from them on the call that would be important, not showing a slide deck that marketing built for 500 million hours and is really proud of. Sorry for any marketers who are on the call. But that's what I would say day in and day out. I would also just say, by the way, guys, on your shifting away from discovery call to your demo, when you do get to the point of a demo, for the love of God, don't just jump into it. Like, we always want to set an agenda. I love to give a roadmap. Here's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about these 4 things, right? I'm going to go through this, then I'm going to lead to that, lead to this, and then end with that. How does that sound? Anything else that you wanted to know? The other great thing about the agenda is, if by some chance I am boring them to tears, at least they're like, only 2 more points to go and we get the hell out of here, right? So they at least know where we are in the presentation, but set that agenda and make sure you're hitting on the points that they cared about and why they showed up today.
Awesome.
Nick, does that help?
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, Cynthia, we'll go to you next. Cynthia has a great question from the CSM side.
Hey, Cynthia.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, it's great to be here. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to thank you. You did a post a couple months ago about you were debating whether you should reach out on LinkedIn to hiring managers. And it just so happened that I was interviewing, I had a great interview, and I was informational interviewing, and at this company I wanted. Long story short, I read your post the next day. I used the template. 1 month later, I got an offer. I'm just saying.
Congrats. Oh, I'm so stoked to hear that.
Yeah, it was your template. And I tweaked it for like the company or whatever, but I was like, I'm with her. I'm going to do it. Screw it. Went right to the.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
I went to the front of the line. I got HR. I reached out to him. HR called me the next day. The whole thing happened. So I just wanted to say it's legit.
Thank you so much for that feedback. Oh, I've got little tears in my eyes. I'm so grateful for you telling me. Like is Scott and I were just talking about this. Like getting to make positive impact, getting to like impact other people. It's
that'll fuel Sam to keep posting for the next like 90 days for sure.
No, but I've been following you for the past year. But I was just like, it was just as if we were on the same wavelength. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I didn't have to think
congrats. So where did you land? Where are you?
I'm at NASDAQ at the market. They have a market technology
no big deal.
team.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
No, but they have a market technology team. And so it's like you go down a rabbit hole, these products themselves. But here's the scoop. Here's my question. Now, I pivoted to a CSM role, which is new for them. And what's happened is they, as you can imagine, they have relationships with all the biggest global banks, wherever. And those banks get a lot of the attention. So the tier 2s and 3s have been sort of ignored. So my question to you is, how would you handle those discovery calls for like, we have some new clients too that don't have any kind of experience, but then some of the ones that are maybe not happy with us. So what are your thoughts? And because the deal, like they're using the solution, you know what I mean? But you want them to be champions. So what are your thoughts in those instances?
Tell me a little bit about when you get brought into the.
It's literally being launched next month. So it's going to be like, I'm learning all this like technical stuff now. And in January it's happening. So essentially these are existing clients. Some of them have been using the product. Some are new in terms of the users themselves. And so it's like, again, the deal closes. There's like some time that they need to kind of like, there's data that needs to come across. So we've got like engineers that are kind of getting their market data that we look at. And then it's, I get brought in to like do the demos to train basically compliance officers on how to use our technology. And then also too, you want to make them sticky. You want to find out there's a lot of like NASDAQ's the 800-pound gorilla in this space. So there's a ton of competitors that are like chomping at the bit, and they realize they need to do a better job of keeping their clients sticky. So
totally. I would use discovery depending on what your relationship is going to be with your account executive or your account manager. If you've got one, I would use discovery to understand like, how can you delight these customers? Like, what is it that you can do to make sure that they've got an incredible experience? I would say, depending on the volume of clients that you get transferred over to you, like if we're talking about hundreds, or if we're talking about like 6, I would work with the AE, right? Especially for the tier 1 accounts that you want to make sure like these are great. We have, like 5% of the revenue capture that we can. There's so much more room to grow here. Let's think about how we turn them into champions of ours. So work with the AE, say, tell me about the sales process. What can I read in the notes in Salesforce or whatever it is you guys use? What can you ascertain about the client? And then I would show up with a little bit of a point of view, right? Just showing you've done your homework, show me you know me. I see you came on board. I see what products you signed up for. I see these notes, but tell me a little bit in your words, like, what are you most hoping to get out of this? How can we make sure this is an incredibly successful venture for you? Tell me a little bit about that. Why I would say to always make sure you show up with that point of view and having done your research is I want to know that you showed up prepared for the call, right? I don't want to just show up and having done all this work with the AE, sent all these notes through, talked about what I need, and then for you to be like, hello, I know nothing. So even if you do know something, right, it's important that you say it so they know that you've done that research. And then I would build that portfolio out, right? So here's what we need to do for these clients. Let me build out a regimen for staying in touch with them, following up, making sure they're getting what they need. One more thing here, and for you AEs as well, one incredible way that you guys can really delight your customers. From a CSM perspective, I would check in more often than the standard QBR. If you guys have even, created those, if you're going to do that, just check in, offer insights, give them some kind of material to read. You can take one piece of content, send it to 100 clients, make it look like it was bespoke for them, and then it wasn't, right? And it took you 22 minutes to do it. from an AE perspective, one of the things I like to do is I always set reminders, 30, 90, 120 days, something like that. And I follow up, especially that 30-day mark after they've signed. How's it going? Are you getting what you need? Is the onboarding what you thought that you would experience? Is there anything I can do to help you? Can I escalate anything? Need anything? Your clients will be gobsmacked that at this point, when you need nothing from them and there's nothing for you to gain technically from them, at least from a revenue perspective, that you're checking in. And when you do that again at 60 or 90 or 120 days, they're going to be like, what the hell is happening? And you'll be like, I can't wait for you to change jobs and then buy from me again. I mean, I want to make sure you're happy. Right. And that's what we're doing. So I think as a CSM, it's a great way for you to be a partner. Also, if you do these things, that will stick out in the minds of your AEs and your AMs. Your AEs will close these incredible deals and be like, I don't want to work with anybody else but Cynthia. You will get a great reputation just by being different.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. I definitely wanted your feedback because, it's discovery in a different way. So thanks for that.
Great question. I will say too, I think that post, I was lucky that it went viral. It was picked up by somebody, an editor at LinkedIn, who just set fire to it. Right. And that's why it got so much exposure. I think you guys know this, but if you don't, if you love what Scott posts, what I post, what Amy posts, people like that post, the best thing you can do for us is add a comment. That really is what helps supercharge our content and lets other people see it. A lot of people forget that. Or we'll hear from people like you who are like, I've been following you for a year. And I'm like, who are you? I've never met you before.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So drop that in. That is the easiest way to pay it forward and make sure people know about us and get to learn from us just like you guys do.
You got it. You got it. Anytime.
Thanks.
I'm going to sneak one question in here from Brian, and then I have a lightning round questions for you. Brian, let's go to you.
Hey, Samantha, how are you?
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Good. I'm your neighbor in DC.
Oh, you are? Where do you live?
I live in Noma.
In Noma. Okay. I'm out a little bit in the burbs in Reston, but love Noma.
Oh, nice. I'm from Great Falls, so my parents are out there.
Right on.
Yeah.
We just did a presentation and found that we're doing a training. We did 100 of them for Comcast last week, and one guy literally lives 2 doors down or 2 streets down. He's like, "Oh, come over," and I'm like, "No." Please,
no thanks.
No. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
So this is really relevant because you just talked about what happens 30, 60, 90. But what do you do right after the discovery call? What's your follow-up? Are you sending out an email with recap points? What does that look like to show that you did actively listen, you heard them, and you're showing them, information that you took from that call?
Yeah, a couple of things. So this might also be a bit of an unpopular opinion. If you were engaged on that discovery call, right? If you had the back and forth, if you were a true partner, consultative, et cetera, they know that you got it. So that kind of recap of hello, and this is what I heard, and here are these 6 bullets, to me is unnecessary. But what I do like to do after we have discovery calls, I try to do this within the same day, before we push back from our desk, this is something I do, and we'll send out a thank you note and just say, hey, Brian, great to meet with you today. Thank you so much again for making time. Really looking forward to our next call. Can't wait to unpack more of whatever this is, meet with Teresa and Thomas or whoever it is. Thank you so much again. That's it. So I don't recap. I don't go through the whole thing again. Hopefully they know that I got it because we had an active conversation. For calls that were really important otherwise. So let's say we're on the 3rd or the 4th call. I've got my decision makers brought in, cross-functional partners. I'm multi-threading my buns off. My leadership is included. When I end those calls and I'm like, we've got this. There is such a good chance we get this. One of the things that I like to do there is take the time to send handwritten thank you notes, even before we close the deal. So if I can send a note to those executives, and by the way, these notes go to anybody that was involved in that call. Don't make the mistake of just sending it to the decision maker, because man, is that rude. But I send those thank you notes out. Everybody's at home. What do you do to not sound creepy? Just say hey, we've got something to drop in the mail to you. Would you be so kind to share your best mailing address, right? Not home address, mailing, less creepy. If we win a deal, those notes are non-negotiables to me. They will absolutely go out. We have a whole process built at Sam Sales for how to do it. I always wrote those when I was a rep, even when I was a leader. Have your leader send those too. Imagine the impact, right? And what people will think about your culture, your character, et cetera, if you do that. quick side note, don't do this on company stationery. Spend $20 to get a pack from Amazon or whatever, right? We don't want to make this look like a part of the sales process and emotion.
Yes.
We want it, right? We wanted this to look authentic. Final note, when you guys lose deals, I do. When you lose a deal, I also send a handwritten thank you note. Now you might be like, what the fuck do I have to be thankful for? I just lost the deal. You got the at bat, you got the chance, you know, we're given a shot at winning the deal. And we know that the person that won probably is going to suck anyway. We also know most of those people at some point will change jobs, right? So when you send a handwritten thank you note to say, thank you so much for letting us be a part of this process. We of course wish things had gone differently, but we wish you nothing but the best. If we can do anything to be of help with this or anything otherwise, please don't hesitate to give a shout. I do not add a business card in there. I'll just sign first name, last name. I have stationery, my first name, last name on it. So kind of redundant there. So I just put Sam. Hopefully they're not like, oh, how is this when they get the letter? Because then I really did a crappy job in the sales process. I have people who have notes from like 2008 when I lost deals still on their bulletin boards, right? And they're like, I'll never forget this. You'll kill people. People will change jobs, right? They will move and they'll be like, that was a class act. We have to hire you. Like, we're not even going to consider anybody else. So definitely make that part of your practice. You know, I do this, I bring these when I travel. I'll write these, you know, watching Bravo when I'm drinking wine at night. Like, you know, there's always time to do it. We just have to make it a priority.
She said
Yeah.
Bravo.
Below Deck. Anybody else? No. Succession. Did anybody watch the finale of Succession on Sunday? Holy crap. Yeah. Go. I'm not going to give anything away.
Good, because I've watched 0 episodes of that. Don't ruin it.
So good. So good. Kieran Culkin. Oh my God.
Okay. Okay, lightning round time. Just want to say thank you to Samantha for all of her help tonight. If you haven't connected with her or followed her, please do check out her work, her profile, and her tips. Obviously, they work. Thanks for Cynthia for sharing that. Lightning round, ready?
Yeah.
Discovery call happens. It's supposed to be a Zoom. Camera is off from the prospect. Do you say something or do you stay quiet and leave them alone with the camera off?
I say something. Here's my move. I always say, hey, good to see you. I can't see you just yet, by the way. Can you see me okay, though?
Love that.
And the person's like, can you see me now?
Good.
Like, yeah.
Okay. Optimal discovery call length. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, non-existent. What do you think?
I think like 30 minutes. 15 minutes, I can't get shit out of 30 minutes. 60 minutes, I'd sooner die. 30 minutes is great.
15 minutes too short, 60 minutes seppuku, and 30 minutes is optimal. Okay, you heard it.
Yeah. I'm going to get stuck on a bad date for 60 minutes. No way, okay. 30. Coffee. Okay, go.
Okay. Eliminate the like, well, it depends. So you're not allowed to answer that. Optimal number of discovery calls AE should shoot for every single day.
Every day.
Every day.
I think 1 a day, and at least 2 of those should be self-sourced.
Can you tell me a little bit? Tell me a little bit more about that. Wait. 1 discovery call a day, so 20 a month, and 1 or 2 of those should be self-sourced a week is all?
Yeah, I think that depending on what your ace.
No, you're not allowed to use depending. That costs you a bottle of tequila, penalty flag.
That's bullshit. I didn't see the rules before I signed up.
Oh, that's the power of being in charge of this thing. I make the rules up. Don't say depending. So explain a little more. 1 a day, but you have to self-source 1 or 2 only a week. So 2 out of the 5 is all from yourself.
At least give me reps who even do that, who don't say like, I work for Salesforce, I don't have to self-source muscle. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. What I will say, if for all of you guys, do the quota math on what you need to do in terms of how many calls you need to have, how many, whatever the fuck's emails you need to send, do that quota math and figure out how to do that all by yourself. No MQLs, no SDRs, no any of that shit. Just figure it out yourself.
All the other stuff is extra.
You'll kill it. You will absolutely kill it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Love that. Last question is the most important question of the night. I need to understand the significance of the pineapple.
The pineapple. I knew you were going to ask.
What is this? You did not know that I was going to ask about the pineapple.
No, people do all the time. You guys, I get some really weird people that ask me about this pineapple. Do we know about the upside down pineapple thing?
I don't know anything about that.
No. Okay. Apparently, yeah.
Kelsey knows about it?
Kelsey? Kelsey, you say it so I don't have to.
Say it.
No, wait, I don't know if I actually don't know if I know, but I feel like pineapples at your house are a sign of like being welcomed. Am I right? Am I on track?
They're friendly, they're hospitality. It's right, Seth, you got it. Exactly right. So if you do,
what?
if
Was I right?
Yeah, so you're correct. So the pineapple, really need to maybe rethink this graphic. The pineapple is like friendly, it's hospitality. I'm not from the South, right? But like that's what it signifies, is like friendliness and welcoming and whatever. Apparently, if you have an upside down pineapple, or if you put it in your shopping cart when you're grocery shopping, it means you're a swinger or you're in a threesome. So people will get on discovery calls with me and they're like, does that pineapple ever go upside down? And I'm like, what the?
Wow.
I'm like, I gotta go.
Old discovery call strategies by Sam will be next week's Tequila Tuesday. We'll get into
oh my God, who in their right mind? At least I'm not easily offended. I'm like, okay, let's talk about your enablement program.
Hey. Oh, what a good way to end. Thank you so much, Sam. Everybody, thank you for coming. Have a good holiday season, Sam.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Scott.
We'll
Bye, you guys. Have a good one.